The Ritvik, representative of the Acharya system, Ritvik Ras, created by ISKCON's founder Acharya, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. The definitive analysis by Amayatma Das.
Om Ajnanatirmandasya Jana Shalakaya Chakshunun Sanjena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. Namo Vishnu Vadaya Krishna Pratstaya Gurule Shimate Bhaktivedanta Swamini Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Ghodavani Pacharane Nivase Susunyavari Paschatya Deshataranam. This presentation is dedicated to my spiritual master, my savior, my life, my soul, ISKCON's founder Acharya, Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Pravakacharya Astutara Satta Shishima, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. My foremost prayer in producing this presentation is that Srila Prabhupada will be pleased by it. And I pray that the Vaishnava community, the followers of Srila Prabhupada, receive it in the same simple devotional mood which I have tried to produce it. My name is Amayatma Das, an initiated disciple of Srila Prabhupada since 1973, and I have written, created, and produced this presentation. I begin with a short quote from Srila Prabhupada's Krishna book, chapter 60, the talks between between Krishna and Rukmini, where Lord Krishna tells his beloved first wife Rukmini, better late than never. Why better late than never? Because it is. Because it is late. And because if the Ritvik path is the path that Srila Prabhupada wanted us to take, then yes, it is better late than never at all. But my personal reason for including that quote is that it took me so long to make this presentation. I had the original idea to make an online presentation on this subject way back in 2007, and actually nearly completed the first attempt in 2008. But I got interrupted with life, with having to make a living, and I had set it aside for nearly a year. Still, I never stopped thinking about it, and over that period of time, I gathered even more information. When I started to work on it, I chose to rewrite the scripts and start all over. And that was just the first of what would become many stops and total restarts over the years. I don't want to bore you with all the details, but I would like to share with you one episode that for me is extremely important in my journey to make this presentation. At one point in 2011, I really became frustrated because of the delays, even back then. I was struggling to figure out why Krishna wasn't helping me. Why wasn't he making it easier for me to complete this more quickly? This is the material world, after all. Just the fact that there were delays didn't mean that I was on the wrong track. Just see the delays that Srila Prabhupada endured before he came to the West. It was in 1922 when Srila Prabhupada was 26 years old that he first met his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. And it was at that meeting that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta had requested our Srila Prabhupada to go to the English-speaking countries and preach. 43 long years later, Srila Prabhupada arrived in America. Even though I had no personal doubt that the message I wanted to convey was right, I was trying to figure out why so many delays. I approached Srila Prabhupada in my prayers, requesting his mercy and blessings, and his help so that I could get my presentation completed in a timely manner. Actually, I had originally named this work Amayatma's analysis on the Ritvik Guru issue. And that was my what I originally set out to do, to present my conclusions, my arguments, my views, etc. But as I was praying to Srila Prabhupada for his help, it occurred to me that instead of asking him to help me, I realized I should be offering my help and my services to him instead. In other words, I had been asking him to help me make a presentation about my views and the message that I wanted to present. But as I was praying, I realized that instead I should be offering my services to Srila Prabhupada and produce this for him. I should be asking him what he wanted me to present. And I should make the presentation about his views and the message he wants presented, rather than about Amayatma's views and what I thought was right. Even though personally I was convinced my understandings were correct, I realized what I thought was right or wrong was of no real importance. And in prayer, I approached Srila Prabhupada with all the sincerity I had and offered to make this his presentation, to convey whatever message he wanted. I gave up all my attachment to my own views on this topic. I no longer cared which side of the issue I would present or promote. If the current system was what Srila Prabhupada wanted, then I would present that. I begged him as sincerely and as humbly as I could to please guide me so that the message that will be presented will be his message, not mine. And so starting in the fall of 2011, and for the next 1.5 years, until the spring of 2013, I reassessed the entire issue. I researched every aspect, re-argued every argument, reanalyzed every logical conclusion, rethought out every philosophical point, while the whole time I kept this prayer to Srila Prabhupada front and center, praying for his guidance, his mercy, so that the message will be his message. And I did this. And as I did this, I kept coming to the same conclusions as I had before. And that was that Srila Prabhupada never authorized the current system, that this system is not the system he wanted, and that he did, in fact, wanted and still wants us to follow the path of the Ritvik representative system that he had laid out for us prior to his departure. Just to make sure that it just wasn't my own bias or personal views getting in the way. When I started to reach such conclusions on each point or aspect, I would not accept it easily. I would try to argue to defeat it over and over, again and again. I kept reaching the same conclusions. Well, some may argue, look, if this is really the presentation that Srila Prabhupada had guided me to make, then why is there a major section of this presentation called My Personal Story, meaning Amayatma Dasa's story? And that's a fair question. I had already written that part for the original script, and I did so because sharing my own personal experiences and how I dealt with the philosophical aspects, sharing my personal struggles I went through as I changed my own views on this topic, sharing the logical analysis that I used that led me to the solid conclusions that the Ritvik path is the path Srila Prabhupada wanted, made presenting these aspects easier for others to relate to and less boring. Okay, maybe you will still find the section boring, but at least it is far less so, in my view, than it would have been with just a long list of boring and dry philosophical statistics and statements. Besides, there was also an incident that took place starting about a month before Srila Prabhupada left this world. That incident is important for the devotees to know in order to have a full understanding of this issue. All of this is explained in the section, My Personal Story. Since I had inside knowledge of what had happened and why it happened, and I had a unique experience resulting from that incident, it was best to tell it as a personal story. After I completed the reassessment of this issue in 2013 and began rewriting the scripts, I asked Srila Prabhupada in my prayers how to present these things, and at least in my heart, I felt that he wanted me to keep my personal story as part of the presentation. But I'm not going to be so bold and foolish as to state that everything here in this presentation is exactly and only what Srila Prabhupada wants. I openly admit I am nothing but a fool. I am a very fallen devotee who has hardly any devotion. I am not at all advanced or even a good disciple of Srila Prabhupada. Although I want to think that Srila Prabhupada has been guiding me, that is only my personal view. All I can do is state what I have stated, that in 2011, I no longer cared which side of this issue I would present, and it was, and that I was as sincere as I could be in my prayers to Srila Prabhupada, that he guide me to make this his presentation and present the message that he once presented. That much I can say. And that has been my mood and my constant prayers since then, since 2011, as I totally reassess this entire issue. This presentation is the result of those prayers. That is all I can humbly say. Since for me, this was the most important aspect of my effort in producing this show, I feel obligated to include this explanation here in the introduction. I will say that one important adjustment I made is that in doing this reassessment and praying to Srila Prabhupada, is that I became more sensitive to the fact that the GBC men, even the ones who made grave mistakes and even intentionally disobeyed Srila Prabhupada, as we will show and present in the presentation, were in many other ways sincere in their devotion to Srila Prabhupada. Well, they were sincere disciples of Srila Prabhupada. When you hear about the incident I will talk about in my personal story, it will be clear that these men had also used very bad judgment and made wrong decisions during the same period of time when they were making the decisions on this issue. They were actually committing offenses to Srila Prabhupada at the same time they were making their decisions on this issue. Therefore, we can understand that along with these devotees' genuine devotion to Srila Prabhupada, they also harbored very strong mundane desires to want to lord it over others and become the next big acharyas in our line. One last note about this. When I completed my reassessment in the spring of 2013, I again rewrote the scripts and again re-recorded all new videos. I was again nearly ready to make the final edits and complete this when life got in the way again. In the fall of 2013, I had to set this project aside, what was supposed to be for just several months, and it turned into 7 years. During that time, making this was always on my mind, always in my desires, but it just wasn't what Krishna wanted yet. The time just wasn't right. As I pointed out, Srila Prabhupada was first requested to come to the West and preach by his Guru Maharaj in 1922. But all told, it was 43 years before Srila Prabhupada arrived in the West. We can understand that Srila Prabhupada wanted to fulfill his Guru's request all that time, but for whatever reason, Krishna didn't allow him to come for over 4 decades. Just the fact that it took Srila Prabhupada so long to come is no indication that he didn't have the full support of his own Guru and that of Krishna. But it just wasn't the right time until Krishna finally allowed it. And that is eventually how I have come to understand all the years of delays that I have endured to get this presentation done. It just wasn't the right time until Krishna allows it, until now. And now I feel it is finally time for the GBC to themselves engage in their own soul searching and engage in their own prayers to Srila Prabhupada and do their own reassessment of this issue, just as I did, taking into consideration all the facts, the logic, and the arguments that will be presented here. It is especially time that they own up to the wrong and offensive actions of their own members over the years, especially those offensive decisions, I should say, especially those offensive decisions and actions that were directly involving Srila Prabhupada. It is time for the members and the followers of ISKCON to also come to terms with the real facts and the real circumstances surrounding this issue and how the two paths developed, which will be brought out in the course of this presentation.